All right, now big news coming in on Canada evacuating diplomats from India to either Kuala Lumpur or Singapore amid row over Nijjar's killings. Now, we know that India has dug in its heels, asked Canada to pull out or withdraw their diplomats before the 10th of October. A deadline given for diplomats to be moved out. 41 diplomats, Canadian diplomats in India should be moved out before the 10th of October. That's what the Modi government has stressed on to ensure parity of staff in both countries. Now, in the wake of that, news coming in that Canada has decided to evacuate their diplomats from India and move them to either Kuala Lumpur or Singapore amid the row. Well, this is, of course, a big push by India right after allegations came in after Canada alleged that India had a role in Nijjar's killing. India really taking a hardened stance, insists that Canada now must reduce their diplomatic staff, has urged Canada to withdraw their diplomats by the 10th of October. This was almost a direction given to Canada with immediate effect to carry out this process so that there's parity of staff in both countries. Now, based on that direction, Canada has decided to evacuate diplomats from India and take them to either Kuala Lumpur or Singapore. In fact, India had reiterated just on Thursday, barely a day ago, that it is yet to receive any specific information on the diplomats' withdrawal. And right while direction had gone out, a stern direction to Canada had gone out to withdraw their diplomats, nearly 41 of them. Here you have Canada deciding to pull out their diplomats and move them to either Kuala Lumpur or Singapore amid the row. This is, of course, big news coming in. Shiv Arur joining us live from the newsroom. Shiv, Canada finally deciding to pull out their diplomats, nearly 41, we believe. They're going to be either moved to Kuala Lumpur or Singapore. No time given for Canada to rethink here. India stressing that 10th is the last date, October 10th, for them to move out.
Development, Nabila, just a few days before that deadline that had reportedly been imposed by the Indian government for the Canadian government to move out about 41 of its diplomats. Now, we're not sure what number of these diplomats have been moved out, but it could well be the number that was reported by the Financial Times a few days ago, because that was based on their sources in the Canadian Foreign Office, according to which 41 diplomats. Now, we're given to understand, according to this agency report, that most of the diplomats who've been moved out and flown to either Singapore or Kuala Lumpur are diplomats of the Canadian mission who are based outside of Delhi. Remember that Canada has a large consulate in Chandigarh as well as in Bengaluru, apart from the High Commission itself in Delhi. And the 41 or whatever the number is that have been moved out are largely the diplomats who are based in these consulates. We don't know if this number also includes diplomats in the High Commission, the main High Commission itself in Delhi, but it's possible that it is, because the smaller consulates would have had a smaller number of staff. We're not sure yet whether the 41 takes care of all of the staff in these consulates, because these are slightly smaller consulates which deal with a large inflow of visa applications and immigration requests from both these areas, dealing with the south and the north. But what this establishes once and for all is that India's ultimatum to Canada, Nabila, has been adhered to. Any discussions that were taking place, as had been mentioned by the Canadian government, about the modalities of this parity being imposed, means that those talks have yielded nothing. Canada has not been able to prevail upon the Indian government to allow or permit its diplomats to remain in country, and they've had to be removed. Interesting to note that they've been moved, to nearby locations, Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, where obviously Canada also has active diplomatic missions, and they will be based there until discussions proceed further as to where they will actually be deployed. But this is very, very big. This just shows that India's ultimatum its refusal to step back despite Canada trying to soften its tone, asking for negotiations and private discussions, has not held any sway with the Indian government. It has seen this as an opportunity to impose a very, very hard stance on Canada.
Well, absolutely. Shiv, stay with us. We also have Gaurav Sawant joining us on the phone line. Gaurav, zero grace period given to Canadian diplomats. India has been stern that they've got to pull out at least 41 of their diplomats, and right in the wake of that direction, Canada now has evacuated their diplomats, moved them to Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. How would you look at it?
So you heard Arindam Bagchi, the additional secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, the spokesperson for the government, who made it very clear that in the wake of Canada's continued interference, and this was the word that was used, that Canada was continuing to interfere in India's internal affairs. And that is why India was insisting on parity, not just in numbers, but also in seniority. Canada has a mission which is 3 times the size of the Indian mission in Canada. They also have an additional consulate in India. Apart from the High Commission in Delhi, they have consulates in Chandigarh, in Mumbai, and in Bengaluru. And the numbers are huge, by some accounts between 80 and 100, as against plus 1 High Commissioner, 2 Deputy High Commissioners, at least 15 to 20 first secretaries, and a number of other second secretaries and other officials and diplomats who have diplomatic immunity. So India was very clear that if Canada continues to interfere in India's internal affairs, it needs to bring down those numbers, and there has to be parity. So in terms of seniority, the same number of senior ranked officers, the same number of diplomats, and that is why since India was unrelenting after Canada made those, as India puts it, absurd allegations, and then sought quiet diplomacy, India very rightly said that's unacceptable, and now we'll have to see what's the next move. Will Canada put out any information or intelligence, as it claims to have in public domain, about Nijjar? But what's hugely embarrassing for Canada is statements coming out in Canada of Sikh leaders who are saying that Nijjar was actually an extremist who organized extremist camps in Canada. With this information coming out in public domain, it's hugely embarrassing for Justin Trudeau.
Thanks very much, Gaurav and Shiv, for joining us on that.